Welcome to a world of mysteries and dramatic twists of fate. What do you do when you trust your other half with everything? When her betrayal turns out to be deeper than you ever imagined. They seemed like the perfect couple. Everyone thought their love would overcome all odds. But the secret lurking within their family was revealed at the most unexpected moment. They were leading a double life. She cheated by dropping pictures of herself to men they both knew. The men were taking her to the seas, and their relationship grew more dangerous and irreversible with each step. Now we're going to solve this mystery. Prepare for a terrific dive into the dramatic fate of a cheating wife, where every step can change everything. Make yourselves comfortable and we'll begin. I'm 31, she's 34, together for almost 9 years, married 7, have a 6-year-old child. I'm not her first husband. As it happens, she was already married, but her first husband passed away at a young age. They had known each other since childhood, and she truly loved him, having only lived together for about 2 years. 9 years ago, I found out that she was suffering from an unrequited love for a guy she had fallen in love with at first sight. She met him a year and a half after her husband died and fell in love with him. As I said, at first sight. Let's call them blue eyes. It didn't work out. They had a few meetings and rough sex on the first date, which I found out about by chance. We were already in a more serious relationship by then. I could stay at her place for days at a time. I would bring home the groceries and cook with her. She would talk a lot about her husband's past, often with tears in her eyes. I felt sorry for her and sometimes found myself thinking that I was jealous of her first husband. Even then, I began to realize that I loved her. For a long time, I could not forgive not the very fact of betrayal, but the fact that I did not admit it. I did not try to keep her at that point. She motivated her behavior by the fact that I was not her husband, and she had no obligation to me. I agree with her, essentially, but there must be moral principles. I had done nothing wrong to her. I was there for her when she was having a hard time, and I was certainly worthy of respect. I ended up seeing a big, "I love you" poster the next morning. I probably should have left a day earlier, because the words "I love you" will be said more than once in the future by her more than just me. At the beginning of the relationship, we started living together at her place, in a rented apartment. Then we moved to a second rented apartment. Then we bought ours on credit. This very loan fell out at the time of my dismissal from a good, high-paying job at an international company, working in another city, but I had already passed all the interviews for another, higher-paying job. If things had gone well, with just my salary, a 20-year loan could easily be paid off in a year and a half. At the time of moving to a new apartment, my wife was already 7 months pregnant, but as usual, the global crisis affected all those people who at the time tried their best. Of course, almost all who tried and got these very loans. As a result, I am left in a big cold apartment, in debt, without a new job. A vacancy was canceled due to the crisis. With a pregnant wife, plus, for full sarcasm, a big fence falls on our first car line, but it's just been hard. Anyway, any way you slice it, we all went through it together. I couldn't find a decent job for 3 years. Credit was hard to come by. After giving birth, she pulled away from me a lot in terms of sex. In fact, it was an extreme rarity. I often began to be accused of not helping out at home with household chores, even though for the first 6 months or more. My wife didn't even know the size of the baby's cap. I did absolutely everything. Was even at a partner delivery, wanted to support my wife. She's a bit of a fear-monger in that regard. Everything went great. In fact, the issue of domesticity came up because I couldn't find a job. I have a very specific area of work, marketing, advertising, business training, and for a small town, there are no or very few such jobs. During 3 years of crisis, I was working for my wife, as she was the representative of some advertising agency. 90% of the promotional activities that took place on a permanent basis in the city and region she organized. I, on the other hand, did absolutely all the field work. She came in with the project, selected the staff, wrote schedules, wrote some of the reports, handled almost all the communication with the office. I, on the other hand, negotiated the staff, supervised the field, signed contracts, handled the logistics of all the promotional materials, and did all the field organizing. These together were the money we earned and allowed us to pay the loan. As it turned out, I was sitting on her neck for more than 3 years. Realizing that she could not do such a tremendous amount of work on her own just no way, instead of paying someone, it was more profitable to make it a family business, rather than me going to a low-paying job and spending there all day bringing home pennies. Here, I understand, was not a question of finances, but of the future in general. I wasn't really developing for her. She was used to seeing a young, promising, smart guy, and she ended up seeing her assistant. Albeit, yes, well-versed in absolutely all the intricacies of the job, but still an assistant, not a leader and not the head of the family. Over time, I ran several of my own long-term projects, earning between $300 and $600 a month. It was hard to do both my and her projects, but I had to. I had a family, and she could always help me with my projects, but she almost never did. We lived with such a crazy workload for 2 more years, the relationship began to deteriorate. I realized that I no longer satisfied her, not as a romantic man, not as a leader husband. A simple gray life ate her up completely, of course. The fault was who? Me, as I did not earn so much money that she could afford to take a break from work for 2 weeks to go to the sea or abroad. I just physically couldn't take absolutely everything. She motivated it by the fact that I didn't have my own job. On one of my anniversaries, my wife presented me a camera. I have always loved taking pictures, but I could not afford to buy one, as I have a family loan. At one of the big projects, I managed a team of girls. Things got so bad at home, in terms of relationships, both physical and moral, I decided to do myself a moral discharge. I spent new photo shoot for these girls. It turned out beautifully. I got moral pleasure, but I realized that I was doing the wrong thing with respect to the family and, of course, went no further morally and was not going to. My wife found out about everything. There was a scandal, but I understand that she was not particularly upset. Even then, she was disappointed in me. She apparently already knew that I did not love, and I am not the man of her dreams. Maybe it's just my guess. Eventually, a restaurant was attached to our apartment on the first floor of a 9-story new building. After a year of war with the owner, he bought that apartment from me for exactly above market value, or rather, I made him do it. The loan was taken care of. Nothing was pressing on our family anymore. I helped my parents to make repairs on their new 1-room apartment with the condition that I would live there with my family for a year or 2. I worked my ass off, but everything was done, and by early fall, the family was in a warm, clean, and comfortable apartment. It remained just quiet. Finally work quietly and do not worry about anything, but just to collect the money for a new apartment without debt. A year ago, a decent job found me. A high position, a huge company, 600 people and my personal subordination, all in my line of work. I had a big account in the company as an employee. I cast 10 people out of 800. Before that, I had 14 people out of 640. The salary is not space, but there is a serious multi-year perspective. And then, lo and behold, I find out that my wife is having a virtual affair with an old acquaintance of hers, an affair that has lasted over a year, quite stormy with all the elements. Married and male, 39 years old, 2 children, turned out not to be his, but from his wife's previous marriage. Hacking into all of her email accounts and websites, I find love correspondence from the last 9 months. I am, naturally, shocked. Next, I will link the emails to the last year of our life together. In February, I was 30 years old. My wife was organizing a celebration, invited all our friends. The week before, there was a scandal. First of all, I had $1,005 to spare at the time, and I was determined to accumulate funds to buy a new apartment. Secondly, Subconsciously, I began to notice that something was going on, and realized that her birthday was not doing it for me, but for herself. I asked her directly if she had anyone, and she answered emphatically that she did not, accusing me of ingratitude. In correspondence, on the eve of my birthday, she wrote him crazy letters with declarations of love and gave him gifts. Then in the mail, I found a picture of a gold cross. It is possible that this cross was not addressed to me. I do not know. In my 30s, I haven't heard a single word of thanks from my wife for what I've been around all this time. As a result, I am once again left with no money to spare, but everyone thanks my wife for such a wonderful holiday. When we moved into my parents' new apartment, they live across the street. I understood that she didn't want to move, but I didn't understand the reason. Now I suspect that she was ready to end our relationship even then. After living in a new apartment for a month, she admitted to me that she didn't love me and had never really loved me, and it was only about our relationship and nothing else. The whole year was good only for sex, really good. I thought she had less work now and that she didn't mind making love more often, but it turned out that neither I nor her work had anything to do with it. During this year, she has been to the sea twice, once with the child, the second time with a friend abroad. I, naturally, worked all that time. At the same time, when she went abroad, only on the fourth day she let me know that she was doing well, and again accused me of why I was cursing, saying that the internet in Turkey is expensive and the call is also expensive. I do understand that she did not give a damn about me. I cannot find another word. Naturally, the photos from the sea with the words, how she was dreaming about him, and how she was waiting to meet him, too, flew in love letters. I won't go into details, but in general, all these moral values, all these family photos, which I so often took of my beloved family and my beloved wife, flew into circulation, cut out of the context of the pictures with the child she was sending along with these love letters. Naturally, she was not fully clothed in all the pictures. The day before I got to the letters, we had a very long conversation. She never admitted anything to me, said I was ungrateful, stupid, accusing her innocent of sins, crying to me. As a result, I realized that this conversation would achieve nothing. The next day, and by the gayness of it all, was a picture of a rose flower on my windowsill on the background of my daughter's toy house, with the words, how well this rose is preserved, though it is already 6 days old, with what love it was given, and so on. At the same time, I know that she does not like roses at all, on which she told me repeatedly, and this was the first letter I read. Thus, I learned it all. The reaction is uncontrollable. I just kicked her out of the house. The man betrayed all the moral values of the family, love, faith, respect, understanding, lost faith in herself, and made her lose faith in me. At this point, both my mother-in-law and my mother-in-law called, as they sensed something was going on. In the heat of the moment, not fully aware of what was going on, I told them that my wife was cheating on me and that I was filing for divorce. I have done few things in my life that I regret. I wasn't at my own father's funeral. He abandoned the family when we were young. I'm the fourth child in the family. And kicking my wife out and how exactly I did, it was also not the best thing I've ever done. In the end, after all partially experienced shock, rereading all the letters, I realized that she found in him a good companion and a real man, whom she trusted all the most intimate that she had never trusted me. That said, the only mistake she made because of all 9 years of our life remains lying. She always told me that she valued me because she could always talk to me about anything and everything. And she lied to me at the first opportunity to avoid any consequences. But sooner or later all the lies, like the blue-eyed lies, came true, and I understand the meaning of the words, "He who betrayed once will betray again." The child stayed with me after the scandal. She left to live with her brother in a rented apartment, understanding that I do not want to destroy the family I had been unsuccessfully building for 9 years. On St. Nicholas Day, 4 days after the scandal, I gave her a present with a letter from my guardian angel as a ticket to the hardest night and the happiest morning. A ticket that opens all the doors to that night, and that this morning she got to spend with two of the dearest people in her life. In context, meaning herself and our child. Ready to get over and forgive everything that happened, realizing that there is also my fault for everything that happened. In the end, she never came. She was thereby subconsciously admitting to me and to herself that we were not the dearest people in her life. Naturally, she looked for excuses that I had hurt her, that I had kicked her out, and she looked for the reason in everything that was going on around her, but not in herself. She never got over herself or her pride. She gave us up again. I don't know if I did the right thing or not, but now we continue to live together. It's been almost 5 months since all of this happened, and she still hasn't told me anything. She didn't think it was necessary to talk about it, thus making me think that if I questioned her, we wouldn't live together for long. I understand that the more she is silent, the less I want this kind of family. I've stepped over my pride towards her many times, not just for the reason that I continue to love her and my family. Or rather, I love my family the way it used to be. The kind of family I have seen and felt, strong, reliable, where there is respect and trust in each other. The hardest part is that I don't know who is there for me. The person who has repented and realized his mistakes, or the person who expects me to fix all my faults and only in return will be willing to live my life with me with dignity. What am I doing wrong, and is it worth doing anything at all? I will be grateful for advice, and please do not judge me strictly. Dear listeners, friends, there are 2 important messages that I want to share with you. First, it is caused by the fact that very often I hear insults in my address under our videos, namely that I am the author, I have acted as a deer, and so on. I want to remind you all, I have never once posted my personal story on the Fate Drama channel. Ever. Also, it's doubly frustrating that I collect these stories for you. They're pretty hard to find, especially the interesting and long ones. You don't want to watch a 3-minute video, do you? And in general, I'm not forcing anyone to listen to our videos, our stories. There are thousands of people who like it. You can see it in the comments. You can see it in the likes and subscribers to this channel. And now for the second message, a couple of thoughts on today's story. Of course, it's sad to see how old he was there. At least one seems like a 31-year-old man. Yes, even a guy. He's just driven by his woman and wife, who cheats on him brazenly like a March cat. And he keeps running after her and talking about how she seems unrepentant. Seems I don't know what to do. Seems. It makes me angry to hear stories like this about young guys who have their whole lives ahead of them. And they've got themselves stoned into some raging creature, cheating on them left and right. Do you agree with me? If so, I don't know there. Write something in the comments. Yes, see how many like-minded people there are. Of course, the best way out, dear author, would be if you took your will in your fist. Not to say otherwise, that you should take it in your fist and just leave this woman. She is cheating on you brazenly in a dumb way and will continue to do so. I guess even after the first time, you should have thought about it, don't you think so? Author. Friends, and I thank you in advance for the good likes, subscriptions, and comments on this video. See you soon.